The bucket incident became the unspoken truth between them, a tiny, fragile bridge across the vast gulf of his solitude. He found reasons to ride past the gilded spur. He didn't seek her out inside, with a smell of stale beer and desperation hung thick in the air. He waited for her on the edges, where the sunlight was honest and the dust wasn't stirred up by lies. Elara was always working, scrubbing floors, hanging linens, hauling firewood. She moved with a tireless, quiet determination, her energy a stark contrast to the languid hopelessness that permeated Redemption's claim. King watched her from afar, recognizing a kindred spirit not in privilege, but in burden. He carried the weight of the town. She carried the weight of her own survival. Pause for emotion. One evening, a week later, he saw her sitting alone on the back steps, long after her chores were done. She was mending a tear in her thin skirt by the light of a flickering lamp, her brow furrowed in concentration. He dismounted slowly, letting the leather of the saddle creak. Elara didn't jump this time. She merely lifted her head, her gaze steady. "You ought to be inside, darling," he said, walking toward the fire pit, where she cooked her meager dinners. "Nights get cold out here." "I prefer the quiet," she answered simply, her needle pausing. "Inside the noise, it's too much." King nodded, understanding perfectly. The saloon was a symphony of denial. He sat on a log a respectable distance away, settling his long frame. The vast, starry sky of the prairie was their only ceiling. "Where you from, Elara?" he asked, his voice low, matching the hush of the night. "Nowhere worth remembering," she said, the quickness of the reply signaling a scar she didn't want him to touch. Slow, tense pause. "I see," King replied, not pushing. He admired that. The East Coast society women he knew wore their histories like expensive lace. Elara wore hers like a shroud, quiet and hidden. He took out a pouch of tobacco and began to roll a cigarette with practiced ease. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was comfortable, heavy with shared loneliness. "You gonna stay here then?" he finally asked, lighting the cigarette with a sulfur match that flared, momentarily illuminating the severe lines of his face. "As long as they'll have me," she said, picking up her needle again. "It's honest work. I ain't a skin for nothing more." King took a long drag. "This town ain't known for honesty. Or peace." "Neither am I," she countered softly, not looking up. "Peace is earned, not given. And honesty, well, you gotta have something worth telling the truth about first." The smoke curled upward, mixing with the chill air. Her philosophy, spoken so casually, landed like a punch to his gut. He realized he hadn't had a conversation this genuine in 5 years. "You got a good spirit, Elara," he conceded. She shrugged, a small, weary motion. "Spirit don't pay the rent, King." Their exchanges became a ritual, brief and infrequent, yet potent. He'd leave fresh venison on the porch for the Gilded Spur's cook, and she'd nod her thanks from a distance. He'd offer a word of warning about a rough visitor, and she'd watch him right away, a flicker of something new, longing, catching in her eyes. She saw the weary King, a man trapped by his honor and his grief. He saw the humble servant girl, a woman with the inner strength of steel, pretending to be cotton. Pause for drama. The tension simmered like a low flame. It wasn't about beauty or power. It was about two broken people recognizing the missing pieces in each other's empty lives. One afternoon, King found her near his ranch boundary. Her ankle twisted painfully. She'd been trying to gather sage for the cook. Her face was pale, tight with suppressed pain. He was beside her in an instant. All the hard edges of the King dissolved into raw, urgent concern. "God Almighty, Elara," he swore, kneeling beside her. "Why didn't you stay near town?" "Didn't want to bother nobody," she whispered, tears finally glazing her golden eyes. He gently lifted her, cradling her against his chest. She was feather-light, shockingly fragile. Her scent, dust, sage, and clean woman, hit him with the force of a thunderclap. For the first time in half a decade, he felt something other than cold rage. He felt responsibility. He felt want. He carried her all the way back to the Gilded Spur, ignoring the stares of the townspeople, ignoring the gossip that would boil up faster than quicksand. He stayed long enough to ensure the injury wasn't serious, his massive hand surprisingly gentle as he wrapped a linen bandage around her ankle. "You listen to me, Elara," he commanded, his voice rough with an emotion he couldn't name. "You rest that foot. I'll have a boy bring you fresh water and firewood. You ain't lifting a finger for a week. You hear?" "I can't afford to rest, King," she protested weakly. "You can afford what I say you can afford," he growled, the King asserting his dominance, but for her protection, not his gain. You worry about getting well. That's all. Pause for emotion. The mandated rest only amplified the longing. The distance he'd kept was gone. He came back the next day, and the day after. They spoke for hours, not about the past, but about the plain truth of the desert, the quality of the soil, the changing mood of the sun. He talked about his land, his burden. She listened, offering quiet, insightful counsel that surprised him. He was falling. Hard. He was falling for the one woman who hadn't tried to trick him, hadn't tried to own him, who simply saw him as a man in pain, not a vault of gold. One night, the moon a silver coin high above the plains, he sat by her bedside. "Elara," he began, his voice thick, "I ain't been honest with you. All these years, I've been waiting for my promised queen to come back. The one I paid for, the one who was supposed to make me whole." He took her hand, a rough, capable hand in his. "But you," he murmured, his thumb tracing the calluses, "you didn't come looking for a crown. You came looking for work, and you're the only damn thing that's made this place feel like a home." He leaned in, the raw promise of the West in his kiss, dust and fire and desperate hope. She kissed him back with a fierce, starved intensity, claiming the throne of his heart not with a decree, but with quiet, earned devotion. Slow, tense pause. Conflict was conquered, chemistry ignited, longing fulfilled. The next morning, King rode out, a lightness in his soul he hadn't known existed. He was coming back for her. He would give her the life she deserved. He returned to Redemption's claim at dusk, whistling a tune he hadn't sung in years. He saw her standing in the street, not by the gilded spur, but by the stagecoach office, talking to a man he didn't recognize, a sharp-dressed, cold-eyed individual. "Elara," he called out, his voice buoyant. She turned, and the light went out of his world. Her golden eyes were wide, not with love, but with pure, raw terror. The sharp-dressed man smiled, a predatory gleam in his teeth. He put a possessive hand on her shoulder. Well, the man drawled, his voice sleek as oiled steel. "Look who decided to join us. Kingston Cole." He tipped his hat, an insolent gesture of familiarity. "Let me introduce you to my wife, Mr. Cole. Or as you call her, Elara." Pause for drama. King froze on his horse, the blood draining from his face, turning him into a statue of despair. The man gestured to the canvas bag Elara still carried, the only luggage she arrived with, the one she'd never unpacked. "She was sent here, King," the man said, his voice dropping to a vicious whisper. "To watch you. To wait. That promised queen of yours. She sent her. You see, the queen got tired of waiting for her share. And Elara, bless her honest little heart, she's been savant up enough of your secrets to buy the whole damn claim." He pulled Elara close, a cruel trophy. She didn't fight him. Her shoulders were shaking, her tears mingling with the dust. The humble servant girl was promised a different throne, King. The man finished, triumph ringing in the twilight. "Yours." The air turned instantly cold, sharper than any winter wind. King Kingston Cole didn't move, but the world around him shattered. The man holding Elara was Silas Vance, a slick Eastern operator King had once bankrupted years ago. The reason his first fiancée had run. Vance hadn't just lost money. He'd lost his connection to the life he felt entitled to. Slow, tense pause. "Wife." King's voice was a gravelly rasp and used, dangerous. He finally urged Nightfall forward, stopping mere feet from Vance. His hand hovered over his Colt, but he didn't draw. The weapon in his hand felt suddenly irrelevant against the emotional dynamite detonating before him. "Indeed," Vance purred, tightening his grip on Elara's arm. "This little sparrow flew east after she robbed you blind, Cole. She brought my investment back, a tidy sum, I might add, and I'm here to collect the rest of my due. She was my servant long before she was your cabin boy." Elara lifted her head, her eyes blazing past King, directly at Vance. The terror was replaced by a hard, focused resolve. "I didn't rob you, Silas," she said, her voice carrying clearly across the dust. "I took what was mine, the money I earned working your gambling dens before I escaped you. And I didn't run to your queen, Cole," she spat, turning her gaze back to King, a single tear cutting a clean path down her cheek. "I was sent here to find evidence of your illegal land holdings, to ruin you for the politicians who hired me. But then, I found you." Pause for drama. King felt a dizzying rush, the betrayal, the justification, the sheer impossible complexity of it all. Elara hadn't been a humble servant girl. She was a spy, a thief, and yet she had also been the only honest soul he'd met. "You were a spy," King stated, the realization tasting like alkali. "I was," Elara admitted, meeting his accusation head-on. "But I quit the moment I bandaged your hand that first time. I lied to my employer. I risked everything to stay here with you." Vance laughed, a harsh, ugly sound that echoed off the saloon walls. "Sentimentality won't save you, little bird. You broke contract. Now you belong to me." He raised his free hand, ready to strike her across the face. That was the trigger. The king was not a man to watch his queen, promised or unpromised, be struck. King drew his Colt with a speed that seemed impossible for a man so weary. The sound of the hammer cocking was the loudest thing in Redemption's claim. "Let her go, Vance," King warned, leveling the barrel at Vance's chest. Vance scoffed, still holding Elara tight. "Or what, Cole? You'll shoot me and look guilty? Everyone in this town knows you're a soft touch when it comes to that girl." Slow, tense pause. King didn't blink. He didn't shoot Vance. Instead, he shifted his aim with chilling precision and fired one shot, not at Vance, but at the wooden support beam of the stagecoach office awning directly above Vance's head. The drywood splintered violently. Dust, debris, and splintered timber rained down. Vance, startled by the sudden danger, instinctively released Elara to shield his face. Elara stumbled backward, free. "Run!" King roared, not to her, but to Vance, who was choking in the sudden cloud of dust. As Vance staggered, King threw his empty Colt aside. He wouldn't use it on a man who just tried to use a woman against him, and spurred Nightfall forward. He didn't run over Vance. He used the horse's momentum to slam into the man, knocking him bodily off his feet and sending him sprawling into the already stirred-up dirt road. The impact was brutal. Vance went down hard, stunned and winded, his slicked hair now entirely coated in grime. King dismounted in a fluid motion, grabbing Vance by the lapels of his expensive coat and hauling him up. He held the terrified man inches from his face. "You came here looking for gold and revenge, Vance," King whispered, his breath hot with fury. "You found neither. You found my town, and you threatened my woman." Pause for emotion. He didn't strike him again. He simply marched Vance to the edge of the town line, towards the unforgiving Badlands. "Get out, Vance. Tell your masters Elara is under my protection. Tell them that Redemption's claim has a new deal. Mess with the king, and you lose your shirt and your hide. Never look back." Vance didn't need telling twice. He scrambled away into the shadows, defeated by strategy, not brute force. King stood watching until the silhouette of the slick man vanished into the darkening scrubland. He turned back toward the heart of town, his chest heaving, his spirit scraped clean. Redemption and quiet peace. Elara stood where Vance had left her, her face etched with exhaustion, but her eyes were fixed solely on King. He walked toward her, slow now, shedding the last vestiges of the furious king. He approached her not as a claimant to a throne, but as a man approaching the only shore he wanted to reach. He stopped before her, his large shadow falling over her small figure. He waited for her anger, for the final, crushing accusation. "I was going to tell you," Elara whispered, her voice cracking. "I was going to tell you everything after I knew you were safe from him. I kept that bag because it held the proof against Vance. I swore I'd use it to buy my freedom. Then I saw you, King, and I knew I couldn't hurt you." She lifted her empty hands, palms open in a gesture of total surrender. "I'm a mess of lies, King. You deserve your promised queen, someone clean." King reached out, gently cupping her face with both hands. His touch was steady, warm, a perfect counter to the desert chill. "Cleanliness is overrated, Elara," he said, his voice regaining its deep, resonant timbre. "It washes off in the first rain. What you have is grit. That's what lasts out here." Pause for drama. He looked into her eyes, seeing past the deception to the painful truth beneath. "You were sent to break me, and instead, you started to mend me. You didn't take my gold. You took my solitude. That ain't theft, darling. That's salvation." He pulled her into his embrace, a deep, final pulling in that spoke of years of waiting and days of desperate hope. She buried her face against his chest, gripping the worn fabric of his shirt, as if he were the only solid thing left in the universe. "I love you, Elara," he murmured into her hair. "The servant girl, the spy, the survivor. Whoever you are, you're mine. And I you, my weary king," she choked out, finally letting the dam break, the tears now those of release, not despair. The townspeople watched from doorways, the saloon keeper, the blacksmith, the few ranchers who relied on him. They saw the king finally lay down his invisible crown, leaning his head against hers. He didn't need a throne. He needed a partner. He looked up at the sky. The bruised color of the sunset had softened into deep violets and hopeful oranges. "The West gave me one last chance," he whispered, looking down at the woman who had walked out of the dust to claim him. "And I'm taking it." They stood there for a long time, a quiet tableau of hard-won peace against the backdrop of a sprawling, indifferent prairie. The sound of the wind was the only witness to their truth. The guns were holstered. The lies were burned away by the honesty of their touch. The debts were settled, not with coin, but with commitment.